Go to speaker view. All right.
Okay. Hi guys, we're so excited to see you. It's been kind of fun just hanging out with you in this little room here, but someday we'll be back together and we can do it in person. But for now, it's just great what we're doing. So I want to welcome you to the Rotary Club of Kerrville. So happy that you're here. I'd like to remind you to mute both your computer Zoom so that you can hear us, and also your phone, and to also check in on Facebook so that we can let people know that you're attending the Rotary Club of Kerrville meeting. So at this time, I would like to ask Mike Cave, is that who's praying today, Christy? Yes, Mike, would you please give us the prayer and the invocation for our meeting?
Yes. Oh God, in difficult and uncertain times, there's but one rock in our life, and it is you. That we can depend on you to guide us through these times. Guide us through these times, opens to all you have for us. We thank you for Rotary, for Rotary, for the work that's being done, even in the midst of these times. We seek your guidance in all things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And okay, if you will join me in the pledge.
Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the
Republic,
one nation,
which it stands,
under God,
one nation,
liberty,
God,
Justice for all.
Justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Yay, everyone. Okay, if we could now get Clint to introduce our speaker, and our speaker is our friend Danny. So let's see what we could see from Danny.
Thank you, President Tammy. Can you hear me okay?
Sure
I
can.
can hear you fine, Clinton.
Well, listen, our speaker today is a very special Rotarian. He joined Rotary in 1955 in Beaumont, which means he's been a Rotarian for 65 years. Probably few of our members can rival that. Now, he served in a number of capacities in Beaumont, including being the president. And in 1987, he moved to Kerrville and has been a member here ever since, in charge of new member orientation with Ed Hamilton. And he estimates that in that over 30 years, he's probably admitted almost the entire club. Now, our speaker has another very unique characteristic. He apparently is the typhoid Mary of hotel fires. If he registers, the place is going to catch on fire, as he is about to share with you. And so I think it's going to be not only interesting, but very, very helpful to all of us to hear him explain in a hotel fire, do you hunker down or flee? So without more, let's give a warm Rotary welcome to Dan Wheat.
Thank you, Clinton. I need to correct you on one item there. We did move to Lakeway for 3 years, 3 years ago, and we're back now, of course. But we moved to Lakeway, and I did not join Rotary while I was in Lakeway because I couldn't find a club that measured up to the Kerrville Club. So I missed 3 years there. So I do not have continuous Rotary experience for 65 years. But I have loved Rotary, and I've enjoyed it all my life. This presentation addresses the question, when faced with a life-threatening emergency such as a hotel fire, should you flee or hunker down and wait for rescue? Other examples of this type of emergency might include an approaching Category 5 hurricane on our coast, a raging forest fire in the west, a shooter on a high-rise shooting into the crowd, or a tornado. Human nature urges us to flee. This presentation addresses that question. On January 26, 1970, there was a 5-alarm fire in the Hilton Hotel in Chicago on Michigan Avenue, and my wife and I happened to be there for a convention. Now, we have also been in 2 other fires, but they were not near as serious as this one. I was employed by a family ready-mix concrete company beginning in 1957, and I worked there for 30 years until I moved to Kerrville. Every other year, we attended a National Association meeting in Chicago at the Conrad Hilton Hotel. On that Sunday, January 26, 1970, the date of the incident, my wife and I, my brother-in-law and my sister, and my parents, all 6 of us, were registered for the concrete convention in the Conrad Hilton. My parents were 65 at the time, and I was 37. We had 4 children who were at home. Chicago was always very cold in January when we attended every other year for at least 15 years. Now, the convention was held in the Stevens Hotel, which was constructed in 1927 and was named after the owner and constructor. Stevens owned a successful life insurance business and had recently opened another hotel in Chicago. The Stevens Hotel became the Hilton Hotel in 1945 after the war, after it was added to his chain. The Stevens Hotel was the largest hotel in the world with 1,544 rooms on 30 floors. Construction cost was $30 million. It was advertised as the 8th wonder of the world. The opening was spectacular. It was similar, I guess it was the model for Glenn McCarthy's Shamrock opening in Houston in the 50s. The first Oscar ceremony was held there in 1928. During the Depression, the hotel went bankrupt. It emptied and was in danger of demolition. Stevens and his life insurance company were guilty of fraud. In 1942, the hotel was empty and was purchased by the U.S. Army and used as a technical training facility for Air Force pilots. Over 10,000 cadets passed through the hotel for training. And the mess hall was in the main ballroom was where they ate, minus the chandeliers. In 1968, the Democratic Convention was held in the hotel, and as you remember, there were 10,000 anti-war rioters outside the hotel while the convention was going on. Now we go to the next slide. 16 elevators for guest use were located in a cluster in a fireproof shaft in the center part of the hotel, and you can see the elevator equipment room on the top. 8 elevators were located adjacent to the guest elevators in a separate fireproof shaft for staff use. Across the hall from the elevators on each floor was a lobby area with chairs and a lounge. And in earlier years, when we were there was an attendant stationed there to help guests. There was no one on duty that particular weekend. There were inside fireproof stairways at each end of the main 400-foot-long hall that extended the entire width of the building. That means 2 on each floor, 200 feet from the central area where the elevators were. There were 4 outside fire escapes on each floor. They were made of structural steel bolted to the outside of the building with open stair treads, and they were located on the backside of the building. The hall walls are plastered. The room doors were unclad wood and not fire rated. the next slide there. There we go. Let's see, you a couple of slides ahead of me, but that's all right. Don't worry about it. This is supposed to be a picture of the lobby area and had a very elaborate interior. The whole hotel was beautiful. Presidents, queens, and movie stars stayed there over the years. Well, we're getting way ahead now. Hold it right there. On January 26th, a Sunday night, Carolyn and I were asleep in our rooms on the 13th floor next door to my parents. My sister and brother-in-law were in a room on the 19th floor. At about 6:45 a.m., I heard fire trucks in the distance. We could hear them well because I had opened the window in the room a crack because the room was so hot. The sirens got closer. Then the truck stopped in front of the entrance of the hotel and the firemen ran inside, which was pretty exciting. I got up to look outside and we were right above the front entrance on the lakeside. I could hear more fire trucks coming in the distance. I opened the door and there was smoke near the ceiling. I went next door to talk to my father and the door slammed behind me and Carolyn had to let me back in. After a discussion, we decided to get dressed and try to get downstairs. I could hear doors slamming all over the hotel like gunfire from the fire sucking air out of the rooms. We headed toward the elevators. The smoke got thicker and lower from the ceiling. We chose the elevators because my mother would have had trouble walking down 13 floors in the inside stairway on account of her bad knees. We didn't even know where the inside stairways were located. We had not taken time to look. And we did not stop and talk to the hotel operator, which was a mistake. When we got to the elevator lobby, which was near our rooms, we punched the down button. In a few seconds, an elevator door opened. There were 16 elevators there, and one of them opened. And we ran over to the door and looked inside, and there was no smoke in the elevator shaft. So we jumped in the elevator. Nobody else was around. We punched the ground floor, and the elevator dropped to the 10th floor, and the doors opened. The smoke was thick in the hall. We pushed the door close button, and then the elevator dropped to the lobby. Now let's go to the next slide. Or maybe, that's all right, just leave it here. Yeah, that's a good one. When we got to the lobby, there was confusion everywhere with hoses and water on the floor. We walked outside and looked up and we could see smoke pouring out of the elevator shaft enclosure on the top of the hotel and out of some windows. For some reason, some of the elevators had moved to the 9th floor and opened their doors and stayed open. And so the smoke from the 9th floor went all the way to the top. We could see that the fire was on the 9th floor and we could see occupants hanging out the windows, begging for help. The ladders only reached the 7th floor and there were ropes made out of sheets hanging from the windows. Before long, it was a 5-alarm fire with 250 firemen fighting the flames. Mayor Daley and the senior fire marshal, the old Crutchin, showed up. The hotel operator was telling those on the 9th floor to stay in their rooms. Now let's look at the floor plan if we can find that one. Christy, do you see the floor plan there? There you are, hold it right there. The fire started in the elevator lobby area, right in the middle of the hotel, perhaps in a closet. Notice the main halls running the length in front of the elevator lobby. That hall was 400 feet long. The inside fire escapes were located at the 2 inside fire escapes were located at the end of each end of that hall. The deaf school in Illinois was having a field trip to Chicago for about 30 students. And they were going to go to a Black Hawk hockey game and see the sights. They had arrived by bus that Saturday. The director and the driver were with them. They were all staying near each other on the 9th floor near the right end of that diagram. And you can see an outside stairway at the upper right-hand corner of the diagram near where the students were staying. Apparently, two students used these outside stairways to escape the fire. Being deaf was a definite disadvantage, as some supervisors said they could not hear the fire alarms. All communication was by sign language. 2 17-year-old deaf students died of smoke inhalation, and you can see to the right there where they were located. Had they stayed in their room and waited for rescue, there probably would have been no fatalities and only minor injuries. Now we can go to the next one. Notice the burned out, if we're looking at the hall now, notice the burned out wall coverings and the lack of fire sprinklers on the ceiling. Okay, now my father and I, and mother and my wife, we went outside and went across the street. My wife and my mother sat in a taxi cab because it was cold, but my father and I stood there and watched the events unfold. I left my father visiting with other delegates and went around the corner and watched 2 burly firemen pull an empty fire hose up 9 floors on the outside steps and watched the fire hose snake against the outside of the fire escape as it filled up. They entered the hallway and blasted the flames and moved further inside. After a while, we went back into the lobby and sat on the couch. And while we were sitting there, a reporter came up from one of the local newspapers and interviewed us for an article for the local Beaumont paper. My sister and brother-in-law walked in the front door, and we were very relieved that they were safe because they were on the 19th floor. When they heard the fire engines, they could smell smoke. None was visible from the hallway, and no one else was in the hallway, so they decided to evacuate also. They walked to the elevator lobby and punched the down button, and after several minutes, no elevator came, and they noticed the door to the outside staircase. They did not see the inside staircase sign because it was at the end of the hall and they didn't notice it. They walked to the outside door, staircase door, opened it and looked down, and there was no one else on the staircase. It was a steel frame with handrails with open steps and very rusty. It was bolted to the side of the building. My brother-in-law worried that when more began to use the staircase, it might fail and fall off the building loaded with people, and that would have been a catastrophe. Now the next slide there, my brother-in-law decided that they needed to start down the outside staircase. My sister said, no way. She was very afraid of heights. My brother-in-law stepped outside and he started down. And my sister was terrified about being left, so she decided to follow. She said the handrail was very rough and very rusty and hard on her hands. They descended 10 floors on the outside staircase till they got to the 9th floor, and they met up with 2 firemen with a hose and nozzle, spraying water into the burning hallway. My brother-in-law and sister continued on down, stepping around the hose and around for other firemen coming up the stairway until they got to the garage roof and then down another set of stairways to the ground level. They walked around to the front entrance and into the lobby where they found us sitting on the couch. In the front of the hotel, we need the one now that shows the smoke coming out of that's it right there. At the front of the hotel, you could see smoke pouring out of the windows on the 9th floor and on many other windows. And you could see people someone hollering for help. Charles Bright was 17-year-old and deaf, and was in his room at this location on the 9th floor. At 3 a.m., he woke up and was hot and decided to open a window about 12 inches. And he decided to open the door. And he placed a chair against the door to keep it open and to create a draft. He was hot in his room also. At about 6:30 a.m., he was awakened by the smell of smoke in his room. And he moved over to the window to get fresh air. He noticed that the room was filling with smoke from the draft from the hall. The fire was forcing smoke into the rooms where the windows were open, where the doors were open. In other areas of the hotel, fire was sucking air into the room, into the halls from the outside, hence the slamming doors. He tied 3 straight sheets together and let them out the window, but he let them fall from his hands before he could tie them off. He panicked and opened the window as wide as possible and stuck his head out. And then he realized the smoke was so bad, he decided to climb out of the window and hold on to the ledge of the window and hang down below the window to escape the smoke. He lost his grip and fell about 40 feet to the terrace area below, 4 stories below. Firemen were probably there waiting for him, and perhaps they helped break his fall. Charles was conscious, and he tried to stand up, but then he passed out. When the firemen realized he was still alive, they lifted and carried him through a window to a bed in one of the rooms on the 5th floor and waited for the medical help to come and move him down. Okay, you can go to the last slide there. No, the next to last slide. There's a picture of Charles laying on the bed with the smoke and burn injuries. Charles survived. He had 1 broken leg and 1 broken arm and a cracked skull, but relatively light injuries for the fall. And he was on crutches. A week later, he was released from the hospital, and he tried to go to public school, but was very unhappy there because he could only hear through sign language. Eventually, he was allowed to return to the deaf school where his friends were, and he graduated. Okay, we need to look at the last slide if you can come up with it.
I'm trying to find it. I'm sorry.
Right after that one. It's not that important, but it's a picture of Charles at age 65 with his grandchildren. Charles went on to have a full life, working 20 years the Food and Drug Administration. He married and had 2 children and a granddaughter. Interesting item here, Trudy Suggs, a lady, lived in the town where the school was located and knew some of the students. In 1987, she decided to look up the survivors of the fire and compiled their stirring experiences that they endured during the fire and the life after. You can assess it on the website below the picture. Part of 2 of her article is about the heroic effort of the teacher who was chaperoning the group, trying to save lives in the smoke-filled hallway. You can imagine holding a towel over his face and stumbling down the hallway, stumbling on students who were laying on the floor trying to get fresh air. The smoke blocked hand signals, so there was no communication. And he was reaching out to grab students and drag them to safety. Now the web page where Trudy's articles are, if you just look up www.trudysuggs/Hilton Fire, you'll find it. Now we go back to the story. In about 2 hours, we were allowed to go back to our rooms. The guest elevators were still not operating, so we had to climb up 13 floors on the inside stairways to get to the rooms. When we got to the 9th floor, We could see flame marks on the staircase walls where the fire had tried to go up to the 10th floor, unsuccessfully. When we got to our floor, there was heavy smoke damage, but no damage. Some guests checked out and went home. I understand some caught a cab at for the airport and didn't even bother to check out until later by phone. We decided to stay for the meetings. There were lots of stories by delegates of their experiences, particularly talking to operators. One said that an operator told them that she could do nothing to help them and just hope they survived. Should we have tried to evacuate? At the time we made our decision, we did not even consider staying in our rooms. Below is a summary of the fire marshal's report on how to survive a high-rise fire. Don't panic. Don't open the door and rush into the hall. If the door handle is too hot to touch, don't open it. If you open it only a crack and check for smoke. If it's bad, close the door and seal the bottom with a wet towel. Open the window and let fresh air into your room. And if the smoke gets too strong, stick your head out the window. If you decide you must leave and the smoke is not too strong, it collects on the ceiling and blocks room numbers and signs. Exit into the hall and go to the nearest stairway. Stairways are marked with an exit sign and an emergency light. Inside stairways are made with 4-hour resistant materials and are safe. Proceed down to the ground floor in safety. Take your time, but by all means, do not use the elevators. If you are in a hall, remember that the only room you can enter is your own room or a safe stairway. Your choices are very limited. The question was the Conrad Hilton fire safe in 1970 when we were there. I spent some time trying to decipher the fire code that was in effect when the hotel was built and what fire suppression equipment was installed. According to the newspaper, the hotel met code when it was built in 1927. Sprinkler systems were being installed in other buildings in Chicago and worldwide, but none were installed in the Stevens Hotel. The Chicago Building Code had made it not a requirement at that time. The Hilton was an all masonry structure and was built to be fireproof. The hall walls were apparently masonry. They were actually stucco. Sprinkler systems are very expensive to install, and perhaps it was a money issue. In 1970, the Hilton had fire hydrants on each floor called standpipes, where firemen could hook up their hoses to fight the fires. They had to get to the smoke, though, to get to the standpipes. Hence, they had to attack the fire through outside entrances. There was another fire in the Hilton in 1982 that took 4 lives. It occurred on the 25th floor as a result of a cigarette in one of the rooms. The deaths were all from smoke inhalation. The hotel was shut down in 1985 for a multi-million-dollar renovation, and sprinklers are now in place in the halls and rooms. So why did we choose the elevator? While we were on the 13th floor, we opened a window and we could not exactly tell where the fire was. And we did not call the operator. We had no idea of its severity. Our first thought was to escape to a safe area. There was about a foot of smoke in the hallway ceiling and no one else was in the hall, so we decided we could get down before things got too bad. We chose the elevator because it was close, and we didn't even know where the inside stairs were located. We made a very dangerous decision. Had the elevator jammed on the 10th floor or the 9th floor, we would have been in serious, serious trouble and no doubt would have expired and no one would have been able to rescue us. The observations are that ladders only reach 7 floors high. Smoke inhalation is a major cause of death. If you are in a modern hotel with sprinklers, you are safe in your room, so wait for rescue. Smoke detectors are installed that automatically start the sprinklers on that floor in the event of a fire or smoke. If you choose an older hotel, make sure that there's sprinklers in the hallway and in the rooms. Outside stairways may be unsafe due to age. I'd recommend that you take a moment to locate the inside stairways when you check in your room. Now, before I close, I would like to take a moment to recognize Clinton for his excellent run of programs for the past 3 years. Being program chairman is one of the 3 most important jobs in Rotary, the other 2 being president and Rotary information bulletins. I served as Rotary, being Rotary program chairman is a tough job. I served as program chairman for 2 years in Beaumont. Not that Clinton needs any help. For 3 years, he's done a great job. But I'm sure he would appreciate any ideas that you may have for a good program for our club. Good programs help retain interest of members and increase attendance. Now I'm ready for any questions or comments.
Do we have any questions for Dean?
Dan,
Yes, sir.
tell them briefly, we're pressed for time. How many other hotel fires have you been in?
Well, we were in 2 more, one more in the Hilton, and believe it or not, it was in a chair outside of my door. Not serious at all. It was easy to put out. The other fire was in San Francisco at the Mayflower Hotel, which was a 4-story building. And it was a minor fire also, but it was interesting because it was in the restaurant in the basement area of the hotel, and the flue from the steak broiling stove went through the hotel, all of the floors to the roof. And what happened was that flue caught on fire, and the fire was inside the pipe, and the sparks were coming out the top of the hotel. I went outside and looked at it. It was interesting because the people in the restaurant were not warned. They were sitting there eating, and the waitress walked by and somebody said, "Where are you going?" And she had her purse. She said, "This place is on fire and I'm leaving." So everybody got up and rushed outside and watched the fire from outside. I was walking around in the lobby, and the lobby had an entrance into the main dining room where the singer was singing to a crowd who had just finished their meals, and they were sitting there. And the maitre d' was standing at the entrance to the dining room with the curtains pulled, holding them closed, because he didn't want anybody in the room to find out that there was a fire in the pipe, because he didn't want anybody leaving without paying their bill. But I thought it was an interesting fire, but nobody got hurt.
Well, I have to tell you, I didn't know what to expect whenever I saw the title, and this has just been fascinating. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. The history, the newspaper clippings, of course, I'm going to be fascinated with, but it's just an amazing story, a harrowing story, and thank you for sharing it with us. Yay. Okay, we have one question from Denise Lemillier, and then we need to go on to our announcements, but Denise doesn't have a microphone on her computer. So she says, "I have always heard you put a wet washcloth on your face and count the number of doors until you get to the stairs. Do you agree with this?"
Absolutely. That's part of knowing where the stairway is when you check in, and knowing which way to turn and how many steps. And so it pays off. And certainly putting the wet face cloth over your face is important.
Great, thank you so much. We'll go right to Families and Rotary with Stephanie Miller. If anyone has questions for Danny, you can send them to me and I'll get them to him, or you can send them directly to him. And I'm sorry to cut everybody off, but I want to make sure we get out on time. Stephanie Miller, do you have Families and Rotary? Do you want to talk about your concession stand here also?
Yes, absolutely. Just continue to pray for our athletes as they push through. Ingram won last week, so your prayers worked. That being said, with COVID, we're having a little trouble finding concession stand groups that want to help out our Ingram Warriors. So I thought I would bring it to Rotary and see if that is something that y'all are interested in. The concession stand runs from about 6:30 to 9:30 or 10 o'clock. And our home games are this Friday, September 11th, October 23rd, and November 6th. So if that's something that you're interested in, please give me a call. My number's in the club runner, and it's absolutely a fun thing to watch those athletes out there on the field. So, and the other thing is, Danny, I will never go anywhere with you if you invite me to stay anywhere.
Yeah.
I was thinking that.
Well, thank you. And I sent in our email this week, our weekly email, Stephanie's email address, so you can contact her if you would like your business and employees to be represented, or if we would like to get a group of Rotarians to help with that. Okay, I sent you in our weekly email address a note from Liz Twist, who received one of our Rotary scholarships. I just want to show you, this is the card that she sent, and it was just so very sweet, and I typeset it for you so you could read it. So there was that. We had given our Service Above Self Award to Maggie Rector, which I also sent, but if you haven't seen the email, we have this award was presented by Rotary to her for her dedicated service to the community. We have a blood drive, I think, is going to happen this week, our very first one. I'm very excited. I'll give you more on the details, but it's going to happen. So we're excited about that. Christy, do you want to talk about Monday? You're muted.
I know, I had muted you because I had a dog barking. Anyway, Monday, Labor Day, we'll be at the park. We want to be kind of set up by 7 a.m. We're going to stay till 2 p.m. We have some of the shifts are getting close to full, but if you haven't signed up for a shift, that would be awesome. We will have tables, and we will have face masks, and we will give out water. We will give out snacks. We will be smiling faces, encouraging health and encouraging safety, and telling them to come back next year for our regular event.
Thank you. I'm so excited, and I'm so proud to be part of a club that can make something like this happen, even against all of the odds against it. So thank you so much for working hard on that. So that brings us to wine. I have a Merlot and a Moscato. So, and this one's so pretty. I picked it because the bottle's pretty. So we are going to draw for the wine. You can pick which one you want. And the first person that is drawn is Austin Dixon. Are you wearing your pin? Are you still here? And are you wearing your pin? It looks like Austin has left. So Austin, who would have been right across the street to deliver to. Okay, Jill Sadberry, are you still here? And do you, Jill, yes, are you still here? And would you like to pick a wine? Are you wearing your pin? You're muted, so. I hate to go on. Give it one more shot. It's right at 1. Okay.
I'm wearing my pen.
You are or are not?
Are not.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. Brenda Thompson, are you still here and are you wearing a pin?
Hi. Unfortunately, no, I'm not. And even though you can't see me, I'm being very honest like a Rotary person would be.
Is it the truth? There you go. Okay, Ashley Phillips, are you wearing a pin?
Yes, ma'am.
Yay.
Right here.
Okay, I have, you have one. Do you want a Moscato or a red wine?
I'll take the Merlot, the
Okay,
red wine.
I'll save that for you. I'm not sure how to get it to you. So, if you come to town, or I can meet you in.
I'm coming through town. Yeah, I'm actually fixing to be going through town here this afternoon, so I can come by.
Great, great. We're at 303 Earl Garrett. Well, yay. I really appreciate it. So thank you guys, and thank you, Danny, for that wonderful. I really was fascinated by that story, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. Okay, if you will join me in the 4-wave test, we will conclude this meeting. And thank you so much. And I can't wait till next week and to see
You
a
have
lot
to
of
unmute yourself. Everyone unmute.
Okay. Of the things
we think,
Say or do.
Is it the
Is it
truth?
the truth?
Is it
Is
fair
it
to
all?
All concerned.
will build better
better
friendships?
Will it be
Beneficial
beneficial
to all concerned.
Yay.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Danny.
Oh.